we do have to give props to AEW, because they turned this Dynamite into a Fight for the Fallen show, and basically a bunch of money they did make for it is going to go support the cause that's happening down in Hawaii, because they have just had a terrible time. So when you do hear things like this, you got to put your hands together. That is good stuff. Also, hello my friends, welcome to Ups and Downs, the show where we take the finger of power and we give the good bit ups and the bad bits of down for professional wrestling, and that's it. Now, the big conversation that I've had this week is people saying, Simon, why do you get to have such power? I don't know, why don't you go ask Spider-Man how he felt about becoming Spider-Man? And then you'll see the kind of level we're talking about here. What? Goodbye. Anyway, we did get right into it this week as well, and I love this shit because it was Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. The International Championship was on the line, and it was damn fire. It also meant that we were getting a piece of fruit versus the greatest invention of our times, and I was like, man, we are in for a right treat here. And you've also got to make sure that you go on that there social media and watch the video that All Elite Wrestling put out for this. It just enhances the story even more. It gets a couple of thumbs. You'll also learn that this is mentor versus mentee, meaning that Wills was taught how to wrestle by an orange. What a wonderful time to be alive. He soon usurped his teacher as well because he did smash him with a dive when they began to fight up the rampway, when Yuta grabbed him and he just gave him a pile driver on the entrance ramp. I honestly turned to Father Christmas. I was like, ha 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 ha. I just couldn't believe it. What are we doing? This is when we did get into the story stuff, because of course Orange has put so much effort into defending his belt. He is basically now a totally injured human, and Wheeler was kind of taking advantage of this. And he also thought it meant he had the upper hand, so then he started to insult him too. He was doing the hands in the pocket shtick and kind of kicking him. I like this muchly though, because he was taking too long, which allowed Orange Cassidy to replenish his HP. When they got back in the ring, bam, he hit the beach break and he got a 1-2. Ooh. Wheeler then slowed things down again and he started to work over Cassidy's leg. This has been bothering me all morning. I'm like, oranges don't have legs, so how the hell did he do this? And also it goes to show, if you're an orange and you're watching this show and you're trying to grow limbs, don't do it, because one day you may be a professional wrestler and you'll be in this bind too. So the only answer must be aliens, and soon these two were engaged in a battle for the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, but kind of amazingly, it didn't work. Well, at least not yet. This was mostly because Orange at this point was so beaten up. His arm was giving out, his leg was giving out, juice was just coming out of his belly. I mean, he was in real trouble here, and you could feel the fear. Somehow he still hit a Michinoku driver and a tornado TDT for another near fall, and his selling was so good, when all of a sudden, John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli came walking through the crowd, and I was like, what the hell are you doing? I had to check that I wasn't watching Raw, and actually no, I wasn't, but this is when these two once again went for the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, and this time Orange surprised Wheeler Yuta. He got the 1-2-3, and I love that we keep going back to this, because again, it just ties into the narrative. Cassidy has to do whatever he can until, as far as I'm concerned, John Moxley will beat him. You can feel it. So this title run continues to be amazing, and of course the club from Blackpool then start to beat up everybody. And even though the best friends came out to make the save, well, they made a right hash of it. They got beaten up too. It then got nuts, so Michael Keaton would have been happy because the Lucha Brothers ran out as well when we had the best time, because Eddie Kingston's music hit and he returned from the G1 tournament in Japan. And I tell you who I felt sorry for during this segment, the audio guy. He was just going, play, 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 play. The reason this was so good as well is because Eddie made a beeline for Claudio. So even though he has been out of Japan, he hasn't forgotten. And after they cleared the ring, you ain't gonna believe this, he got the microphone, he was all like, London, Wembley, all in, Stadium Stampede. So I started doing the dance of joy. I absolutely want to see it. So this flipping ruled from top to bottom, and it also means that the BCC need some surprise members. This is when we can go absolutely crazy, because it could be the Proud and the Powerful, Santana and Ortiz. That's been heavily rumored, but maybe it's Bryan Danielson. You're now saying, but Bryan Danielson is injured. Yes, but if you're doing a Stadium Stampede, well, you could probably make it work. I mean, there's even been murmurings that Nigel McGuinness wants to be involved. Warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. So this was just a great start to Dynamite, and as we are so close to that pay-per-view, well, I could just feel it in my bones, giving it an up. And during this match as well, I saw a sign in the crowd, and I thought this was super duper nice, because it said, Simon, give Hawaii an up. So of course that ties into what we're already talking about, and it doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up, even though that is a bit silly because it's just some stupid gimmick we made up here on WhatCulture. But here's what I would like you to do today. If you do have some money and you can support, please do, and if not, just send out good vibes. Sometimes you gotta do what you can. Well, we cut straight to this interview with Jim Ross and Kenny Omega, and don't forget, it was a sat down one. And when you do sit down with good old JR, big things are coming. We were at Daly's place as well, so we were reminiscing about the first time Kenny Omega won his AEW World Championship, which was here, when they started to talk about Don Callis. Ken was like, look, Don's always been there for me. He basically brought me up like some kind of weird uncle. But in 2023, he is a massive goober. He also talked about Takeshita, and they even showed clips from DDT, the Japanese promotion, to show that these two guys had been on a similar path, but now that damn Don has corrupted his brain. Of course, it turned out that this was just a massive plan, because Don Callis did interrupt and was like, oh, it's Kenny Omega. Nobody cares about you. When Bullet Club Gold were here, and honestly, they most definitely tried to kill Kenneth Omega. Because they had pipes, steel beams, a damn rope, and they were trying to choke this man. And they kicked his ass so badly, Omega had to be taken to the hospital. Right, you gotta bring it down. There's the crime counter. It goes up by 1. If you did this in any other walk of life, your ass is going to jail. This then continued because we cut to Hangman Adam Page, who had gone to this local medical facility. He was like, oh, right, this is what you want to do, is it? You absolute schmerals. Well, here's the deal. We do have a big show at Wembley Stadium, so how about Bullet Club Gold? You take on me, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi. I was just laughing again. I'm pretty sure I saw somebody fantasy book this on Reddit in like 2019. There was also a subtle hint here because somebody walked up to the Hangman and was like, yeah, bro, you can't drink alcohol outside of a hospital. So that's worrying because the last time he was doing that, he did hit rock bottom. And I get it. So many people want the singles match for Kenny Omega, but we can do that at All Out. And not only does a 6-man get more people onto the card, but I'm sorry, Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega in Wembley? I ain't gonna get mad at it. I'm very, very excited. This was good again. I also want to give a shout out to JR during this, because the camera cut to him. He was like, man, I don't want to deal with this murder. I'm out of here. That's genuinely funny. He should have called the cops. It turned out Don Callis was gonna be a busy boy on this evening too, because right after this, it was time to sort out everything with Chris Jericho. Now, we had done a lot of teasing about whether Jericho was going to join Callis' family. And essentially, they got in the ring. Chris was all like, look, usually I start groups, I don't join them. But the last one didn't work out very well. So, Don, you've got yourself a deal. Oodalally. Callis was genuinely surprised by this and instantly wanted to go and celebrate. When Jericho was like, wait a minute, that's a picture you've got there under a cover blanket kind of a thing. If you've got me a present, I'd like to see it. Now, Don was like, ha, ha, you don't want to see that? And when they did reveal it, Callis has had another painting done, and it was him ripping the head off Chris Jericho. So, now we know Don Callis is a serial killer. Callis tried to justify this by saying, listen, Chris, everybody turns their back on me, so this was just a preemptive strike, which is like telling your partner, well, I only cheated on you because I thought you were going to cheat on me, when Jericho just went off on this guy. It's like, man, you are scum. You absolutely suck. You wonder why you don't have any friends? Well, Exhibit A. He went so far, Don actually gave him a slap. This is when Jericho started to strangle him. So I'm sorry, there's no two ways about it. He was trying to kill him. In no other walk of life do you go, oh man, let's just have a little bit of a strangle. Unless you're into that kinky stuff. I don't want to go in this direction. Takeshita was then here, of course, to help out his new dad when we had yet more surprises, especially given that the G1 has wrapped up, because who else popped in? It was damn Will Ospreay. He absolutely ruined Jericho with the hidden blade and smashed him in the skull with a steel chair to the point Chris was bleeding. I was like, man, I don't know if we should have done that. It gets a little bit freaky deaky. As there was some blood here, if you went quiet, you could hear John Moxley smiling. And we took this picture and we whammed that into Chris Jericho too. So I'm sorry, he was just left a bloody mess. Another guy was dead. Thankfully, Sammy Guevara eventually came out to stop this. I was like, look, the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society should have been here as well, because even if he did screw them over, he didn't deserve this. And later on in the show, Jericho was talking to Randy Paquette and he said, listen, Will, we were meant to fight during the pandemic, but obviously that stopped it, so let's do it at Wembley Stadium. I really do think this is a mega match, to be honest. I'm going to continue to be a broken record because, again, if you had told someone this was going to happen in 2016, they wouldn't have believed you. Now, it is a little bit strange because Jericho has now gone mega babyface. Will Ospreay is definitely the heel, and yet Ospreay is going to be in his hometown. I don't care about that. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, especially because Chris Jericho is one of the best ever, and right now, Will Ospreay is one of the best in the world. What's that finger? I agree. Giving it up. We then had a Jack Perry video after this, and he was all like, listen, I am the greatest FTW champion ever, and I'd like to keep it that way, so next week on Dynamite, I'm gonna retire the title. I mean, it would work. And the reason I'm excited about this is the way that Taz reacted to this on commentary. I think we're going to do something with Taz and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. When I searched my feelings, I realized that's exactly what I want. Taz is so damn good, I'd love for him to have one more moment. When the Gates of Agony beat Nick Wayne and Darby Allin. Of course they didn't. I imagine they did. I just did that for those crazy that go side when you don't even watch the show. They lost. It is why you need to be careful when you are taking on opening devices that have not been treated well over the years. Because Tankaloa and Khan here, man, in the early going, they were just throttling these guys. They had a bee in their bodice. I mean, they jumped Wayne and Allin during their entrance, which is when AR Fox and Swerve Strickland came out. They just hanged out on the entranceway. So they had decided, man, we would like to see a massacre. I think we should watch it as close as we possibly can. We especially flubbed up Nick Wayne here, and it was kind of amusing in a very, very sick way, because he's not the biggest of guys, and the Gates of Agony are. So it kind of was like beating up a minor. I mean, he is only 18, but of course, eventually he warmed up his hand. Darby Allin also had a warm hand. They touched, he got the hot tag, and he went wild. Nick soon got back in there, though, and they hit this bomb super kick combo thing, and I was like, there it is again. That's flubbing teamwork. The Gates then hit this death elbow to balance the books, which is when Nick came back with a cutter, because we got to do one of those. And when he was on the top rope, he was like, screw it. He did a moonsault to the outside. Onto his opponents. He didn't just dive into the floor. That'd have been crazy. Alan was basically hanging out and playing Nintendo at this stage, which is not his style, so he saw that Khan was in the perfect position. He hit the coffin drop and he got the 1, 2, 3. So this was just your Dynamite fun match. Did I have fun? Yes, I did. The Mogul affiliates then surrounded the ring, because this is what all bad guys must do. As soon as the match is over, you get the jump on someone. But they got stopped, because do you know who appeared on the big screen? It was Sting. Now, the reveal here was so good, because he's basically now transformed into Joker Sting, and he had kidnapped Prince Nana. Oh my gosh, I was howling. To the point, there is crime counter, goes up by 1. You can't kidnap people. Once again, you get arrested. Stinger did tell AR Fox, though, he's gonna need eyes in the back of his head, which actually would be quite handy when he just intimidated the ship out of Prince Nana. And when he told him to get out of here, he started going, no, way, come back. So I'm sorry, Sting is what, like 104 years old? He's still one of the most entertaining things on any wrestling show. It also ties into the match as well, because while I do keep saying it, there has been so many death attempts during this feud, it was going to have an effect on someone, and I'm so glad that it's Sting. And now look, even though we are going to get the Stadium Stampede at All In, please let these 4 go absolutely crazy too. I want to see Sting do something nuts, but also something safe. Sometimes I get a little bit worried, like I'm his dad. That doesn't work out at all. Point is this, very well done. I'm ready, up. And speaking about things that were entertaining, we got to our next segment, Goofy Wrestling for Life. Now, I'm not sure how Adam Cole and MJF are ever going to top this, because they just went out of their way to have a good time, and it came out of the screen, it hit me in the face, and I had the best time too. Now, of course, they are trying to figure out how they can defeat Aussie Open at All In. So their first plan was, well, we can go to the Outback Steakhouse, that's kind of Australian, and we can learn a thing or two. Problem was, when they came out of there, they'd had such a good meal. MJF just melted down like, oh no, everything from that side of the world is better. We're totally screwed. When Adam Cole's like, don't worry about it, I've got a plan B. Because he had bought Crocodile Dundee 1 and 2 on DVD, so they can watch those, when Max was like, actually, I got a better idea. When I was in that restaurant, I saw this majestic animal, and I think we can borrow some of its moves. When they watched a video on their smartphone, and of course they were talking about the kangaroo. I think this may have been the best wrestling thing ever. MJF now thinks they should use the kangaroo kick to win the Ring of Honor tag team titles, when Adam once again thought, now I know what we can do, when some guy was just holding a crocodile, so they gave him the double clothesline. I tell you, I've been thinking about this. I've had dreams worse than all of it. I was having the best time. It then actually got better because they did this outside of Tony Khan's office. So he told them to get in there and he told them off and said, this is a workplace and you can't be goofing around. No more double clotheslines backstage. You're only allowed to do them in the ring. And I'm pretty sure that, yes, this was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to recent events. I'm just giving them all a round of applause. I like the fact that people can take the mick out of themselves. It all then carried on too because these two arrived at the arena for tonight's events in a very fancy car. And after they'd split off to get ready for the next segment, Roderick Strong was here and he booted the vehicle. He was like, my foot. So he gets it too. And so many people are like, oh man, I can't believe they're booking Roderick Strong like this. I'm sorry, you can feel it in your bones. These three have sat down and planned all of it out. It's too entertaining otherwise. This barrage of joy continued because Better Than You Baby did go to the ring. Then they started doing promos and we kind of switched on a dime because Allin was like, look, I need to get serious for a second. 9 months ago, I never thought I was going to be able to wrestle again. I would cry myself to sleep and now I'm about to main event the biggest wrestling show of all time and it's the greatest thing ever. I was like, 1 second, Cole, I have something in my eye. He also loves the fact that he gets to do it against his best friend. So I was like, oh man, I can't handle this anymore. However, when it comes to that World Championship, he needs to win it, and he's willing to do anything possible. I don't want to be that kind of a nerd, but do you know who else said that before WrestleMania 17? That's right, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Maxwell then decided he would take this up yet another notch because he then got on the mic and said, listen, when I first started training, I had to write down 2 of my dream opponents. One was Cody Rhodes, one was you, Adam Cole. I then drove all over the place, making my name for myself in this industry. When I heard about All in 2018, I messaged Cody Rhodes and said, man, I'd love an opportunity. When I got a reply and all of a sudden I kicked off that show, and even though I lost that match, which he did, I climbed the ladder rung by damn rung, I got to the top, and now I am the world champion. It's just like, how have they done this in serious wrestling and it's goofy wrestling? And it's flubbing gold. He too is over the moon that he gets to fight his BFF. However, this isn't everything to him because what is everything is the world championship, and by hook or by crook, he's not going to lose it. So somehow these two geniuses both love each other but have to beat each other, and you just know there's a twist in the tale. I mean, I think this is all-time stuff. They were then going to do their catchphrase, but this is when Aussie Open were here and they just beat the shit out of them. Although it didn't last because MJF and Cole actually turned it around and then they were going for the dreaded kangaroo kick. The Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions instead bailed, but as MJF was going, yeah, that's right, you better get out of here, do you know what Adam Cole was doing behind him? He was squatting. I don't mean like that in a weird way, or he needed to, like, I don't know, get something out of his bowels. He was thinking about hitting Friedman with a kick that was super. Ruh-roh. It didn't happen because when Maxwell turned around, they did a big hug instead. But just look at all the seeds that we have planted here, and we set up 2 matches that are happening on the same night. So this is absolutely getting it up. And in terms of wrestling segments, well, it's one of the damn best I've seen all year. We've also got multiple directions here, because I still think that Adam Cole is going to accidentally on purpose screw MJF over in that tag match, and then when we get to the main event, he's probably going to start a brand new group with Roderick Strong and the Kingdom. However, you could also turn that on a dime, and maybe MJF has made friends with Roderick Strong. I mean, Roddy is kind of crazy right now. Once again, though, massive claps from me. This couldn't have actually been better. When we went super nonsense, I mean, whoever predicted this? Because it was Jeff Jarrett versus Jeff Hardy in a Texas Chainsaw death match. Now, the one thing we have to get out there before we get into this is that it was a sponsored match for a brand new video game or whatever, and all the money earned here is going to everybody down in Hawaii. That is more important than anything else. Wrestling is fun, but it's the most important of the least important things. So even if you thought this was trash, just kick it out the window. You never have to watch it again. It was a total roller coaster though, because the two Jeffs started fighting off backstage. All of a sudden Hardy had a crutch, so he used that as a weapon. When we had Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Sanjay Dutt eventually arrived, Matt Hardy was here, Ethan Page. At one point, Matt Hardy just decided, oh man, let's pretend it's the late 90s. And he gave the Jarretts a bloodbath as Ethan Page kind of thrusted in their direction. I was like, what the hell is happening? The whole thing backstage was also shot in this red light like we were watching a Kane match from 1997, when of course Jeff Hardy jumped off some box-like structures onto everybody else. That's just what he does. They soon scrapped back to the ring, because obviously that's where the finish was going to happen, when some smoke started pouring out from under the squared circle, and not even Excalibur knew what was going on. I suppose somebody just went, "Shall we have smoke?" Somebody else went, "Yeah." Jarrett was then on a table and he got hit with a swanton bomb, because of course he did, when the bad guys were smacking everybody in the testicles. And I'm just going to give you a few seconds to guess what happened next. You can come up with anything in the world. You can say an elephant came out to make the save, and you'd still be wrong, because it was weirder. Because who arrived on the scene, given that it was a Texas Chainsaw Deathmatch thingamajig? That's right. It was Leatherface. So I was absolutely dying, but it does bring up the question. Within AEW lore, does this mean that Leatherface now exists? Or was this a guy dressed up as Leatherface? We don't know. He had a chainsaw with him too, so that's another notch on the crime counter, because you can't run around just going with a chainsaw, especially because he chased away Karen Jarrett. So I presume if he had got to her, he was going to cut her head off. So I could not stop laughing or shouting, what even is wrestling? Especially because back in the ring, Satnam Singh then had Jeff Hardy. He chokeslammed him over and over again. Poor Jeff got hit with a hammer when they picked up Jarrett and just threw him onto Hardy's lifeless body and got the 1, 2, 3. And I tell you what finished me off. It meant in the fictional record wrestling history books, it would say Jeff Jarrett won, courtesy of Leatherface distraction. Yes. So I honestly felt like I'd taken drugs before this, but nothing could top the end, because all of a sudden, there was Jeff Jarrett in the ring, and he had a Leatherface championship belt. Is that a real title? Is it going to be on next week's show? And more importantly, this is my new wrestling goal in my own wrestling career. I want to be the Leatherface World Champion. So it does leave me in a very difficult position, because I've seen the internet and they're melting down about it today. So I made sure to watch this twice. I really wanted to give it a fair run. And here's the problem. Knowing where the money was going for, and given how much I laughed on both run-throughs, I'm sorry, I have no choice. I've got to give it an up. I watched this stuff to laugh and smile and be entertained. And it gave me all of those three things in abundance. Like, I don't think we should ever do it again. If you did this every week, you may actually run people off. But in terms of me, Simon Miller, in my 2 + 2 = potato life, like I say, I'm giving it up. We have comments down there, and that's when you can call me an absolute piece of shit. When we got back to business after this, because it was the Bunny taking on Britt Baker to decide who would be the last member of that four-way at Allin for the AEW Women's Championship, it was fine. At first I was kind of like, are they meant to both be good guys? Because they did shake hands. But the best part about all of this is it means the Bunny is back, and she's been out for ages with an injury. She looked pretty good. After they did start off on a fairly level pegging, eventually the Rabbit got on top here because she smashed Baker with a clothesline, so Britt came back with an underhook suplex. And this is when Penelope Ford, who of course is still friends with the Bunny, started casting distraction, but she did a terrible job. I mean, no one's going to be able to beat Leatherface now, but I suppose she's just out of practice, because Britt was just like, would you go away? She punched her right in the face. She then turned around and essentially gave the Bunny the stomp for the 1, 2, 3. And like I say, this was perfectly fine, and what you'd expect, especially because now we will have Shida versus Baker versus Storm versus Saraya at that Wembley show for the title. And that ties into the four-way we did back at All in 2018. I like these little nerd wink-wink nudge-nudges. I also think that match has way more potential than people are giving it credit for. Decent stuff. When I'm pretty sure we got another match planned. Look at that. It was meant to be the Acclaim versus 2 people. I don't think they got a name check. When the lights went out, and I was like, for goodness sake, AEW, pay your bill. When they came back on, though, magic had happened, because who was in their place? It was the House of Black. That's a good trick. It did not go well for Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, though, because Brody King and Buddy Matthews absolutely destroyed these fools, to the point at one point they had a chain and they were just punching them right in the face. I started saying, well, what did the Acclaimed even do here? But it was quite symbolic, because eventually Julia Hart got Billy Gunn's boots, which the Acclaimed do bring to the ring, and basically gave it to Malachi Black as if this was some kind of seance or something. This is when I realized, oh man, it's so simple. Either at All In or All Out, Daddy Ass will make his big return to try and get back his boots, but he will get a massive reaction, and then you can do this trios match. So I don't understand. So many people online go, man, AEW doesn't have any stories. They have so many stories. Either that, or I'm losing my mind. That could very well be the case. So once again, it was a very simple angle, but I always ask myself the question, do I want to see the Acclaimed with a returning Daddy Ass versus the Hob? And I do. When we got to our main event, The Battle of the Brothers. But it was the Young Bucks taking on the Gun Club. Matt and Nick Jackson just attacked Austin and Colton during their entrance because, of course, what had they done recently? As part of Bullet Club Gold, they had sent Kenny Omega to the hospital. I don't want to be that guy, but I do believe that's another story. The Bucks were also jumping off the damn entranceway, which kind of flies in the face of some people that have gone, man, they don't look motivated right now, when they had to go and let me down. Because they did indeed grab the guns and they threw them into Barry Barricade. And I was like, man, Matt and Nick, this isn't who you are as people. You've let them get in your head. So bring it down. The Justice for Barry counter goes up to 96. And look, that's me being way, way nice. I've ignored some recently to try and give some justification to all of this. But now we are 4 away from Baz's funeral, where we will finally put him to rest. And how the hell am I ever going to cope with that? Also, shout out to the people in the comments that go, Simon, I hate it when you do counters. It's way too silly. Yeah? Well, I just saw Leatherface on this show, so I win. Sadly, the momentum didn't last long because eventually Austin and Colton did cut them off and just started smacking Matt Jackson in the mouth. And they did this drop kick, and man, I tell you, that was a thing of beauty. Because they totally get it though, eventually they did just smash into each other when Matt Jackson was just somersaulting all his way to the hot tag. And this Nick Jackson man, he may have the best one in the business. Because he was hitting super kicks, face busters, bouncing off the ropes, doing moonsault. It was like you were watching some kind of experiment in motion. Now, I don't actually know what that means, but I don't know how a human being can do it. The Bucks went for the BTE trigger, but Colton stopped that, as he did for the Meltzer driver. When the Guns all of a sudden were back in control, they hit the 310 to Yuma, but my word, Nick Jackson broke that up at 2. He also did this with a stomp off the top rope, because I was like, why not? Why would you do anything basic when all of a sudden, for like the 3rd or 4th time on this show, we got a battle for the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. The Guns were absolutely trying to cheat this because they were trying to give each other leverage. So eventually, when the Bucks were in the same position, they were like, well look, turnaround is fair play. They helped each other out. And they got the 1, 2, 3. So that was interesting. Almost like Matt and Nick wanted to protect the Guns because they understand they do have an amazing future. Either way, bring it down. Surprise roll-up counter. Goes up by 1. But I like this. Good main event. Up. Also goes to show that you can't outbuck a buck. What the hell does that mean? And of course, eventually Jay White and Juice Robinson were here. And they were just causing carnage. And it meant the Young Bucks were in right trouble because Hangman Page and Kenny Omega weren't going to help them. Once again, they were at the local medical facility. The Bullet Club knew this too, so they were about to Pillmanize Matt Jackson's already broken arm when FTR's music hit. And I was like, man, give me those 97 WCW vibes. They're old school, so they pretended they were going to come out the entrance ramp, but they actually came through the crowd and they beat the crap out of Jay White and Juice Robinson and everybody else and sent them to the ring when the Young Bucks looked at Cash and Dax, and Cash Dax looked at FTR, which means now it's time to get super duper serious. FTR also held their belts up, which is always a very strange but very cool thing to do in wrestling. And I tell you why this was such a nice little narrative bit. The reason they did this is because when they get to Wembley, they don't want to beat the Young Bucks who are injured. They want to beat the best Young Bucks they can possibly be. So the rubber match is all set up, and I tell you, I actually think if it does all go to plan, this could be one of the best tag team matches ever. And do I have a problem with that? No, I do not. Giving it an up. Which did indeed bring us to the end of Dynamite, and look, I admit maybe this one I am a little bit biased for, because of course we went full in about making the card for All In. As I'm going to that show, it just got me so damn excited in my Tootsie Toes. I'll tell you, I don't care, man. It's not a hardship to enjoy pro wrestling. Giving it an up. Now please do leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about last night's AEW Dynamite. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs for Raw. That's right, we're crossing those streams. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. WhatCulture.com, social media, but more often than not, just remember to be a positive peep when it comes to sports entertainment. It will serve you far better, I promise you. Take care, see you soon.